All right, what's going on, everyone? I am super excited that you chose to invest a few minutes with us here today. My name is Brian Oles. If we haven't met yet, founder and president here at Black Speakers Network, and welcome to our very first Health is Wealth virtual series. This virtual series is co-presented with Black Speakers Network and Maryland Health Connections. If you're not familiar, November 1st is the beginning of open enrollment. We'll be talking about that shortly. It's running all the way through January 15th. 2023. And so now is the time, if you do not have health insurance, you are in the state of Maryland, now is the time to get enrolled. But we know that within Maryland and across the country, we have a lot of folks who are entrepreneurs or maybe even aspiring entrepreneurs, folks who are thinking about starting a business. And the topic of insurance consistently comes up. And it is something that I know intimidated me. When I first started my company, I had no idea, if I left my corporate role, if I'll still be able to get insurance, what type of insurance I needed, so many questions. And so because of that reason, we partnered up with Maryland Health Connection, and we've created this series to help answer some of those. And of course, I'm no financial expert. I'm no insurance expert. So I had to tap into the Black Speakers Network community and find not only an expert, but actually the person that helped me find health insurance, and not just any health insurance, the right health insurance through the Maryland Health Exchange. And that is Dr. Constance Craig Mason, who is here with us. So, Constance, welcome. I'm going to introduce you in a moment, but first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Dr. Brian.
This is going to be a great conversation. So if you haven't met Dr. Constance Craig Mason, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is the CEO of Concierge Financial Advisory and the president of Money Concepts, Wealth Management and Financial Planning. As a dedicated financial advisor, she is an award-winning insurance broker. And when I tell you she is passionate, she is a passionate, not only about the financial space, but also an accomplished, passionate international speaker, 8-time best-selling author, and teaches her clients to correctly manage their money so that they can live the life they want without worrying about money. So as you can see, we have some knowledge here on the series to be able to talk about some wisdom. So here's what I would like you to do. If you are an entrepreneur, just drop let's keep it fun. Just drop a couple dollar signs into the comments. I know we have folks watching from all across the country. So if you're an entrepreneur, let's do this. If you're an entrepreneur, drop $1 sign. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur, drop $2 signs. And if you are, maybe let's say you're not an entrepreneur, you're not an aspiring entrepreneur, but you're just here to get the information in case you may one day need it, drop $3 signs into the chat so we could just know who we have with us. But Constance, I'm excited about this conversation. Again, thank you so much for joining. And I want to dive right in so we have as much time as possible to get some of these questions answered. And so as we move forward, I've just read a little bit about your bio, but from your own experience, can you tell us what led you to become so passionate about insurance? I think most of the time, I've never met anybody who is as passionate, has been such an advocate as you. But I'm really curious to know where that came from, and then also what led you to make sure that others, whether your family or people around you, also had the correct coverage in place.
That's a great question, Brian. I do think I might be one of a few people who get excited about insurance. Insurance seems so boring and contracty, if that's a word. But I, grew up in the inner city of Baltimore in poverty, and I know that challenges happen to the best of us. And oftentimes I'll share with people, it's not about, if something will happen, it's when it will happen. And I do know that when life happens to us, we want to be resilient. We want to be able to bounce back, get on our feet. And from my understanding of being in this space, financial and insurance, for 13 plus years, I've learned that insurance helps with those what ifs. It's someone bigger than you, have more resources than you, cutting a check to take care of the what ifs that happen in your life, whether it's related to your health, your life, or even your business. Insurance carriers are our friend because they are the ones writing the check when something happens in exchange for a monthly premium, an annual premium, however you choose to pay it. But we are in partnership with our insurance companies. We have a responsibility to pay our premium, and they bear the huge responsibility of taking care of the what ifs for us. And so I know that when things have happened to me personally and in business, I have welcomed the opportunity to call my insurance carriers and get the resources that I need. So I am grateful to be here with you and share whatever nuggets that I have today.
Wow, you bring it down so simply, and there's a lot of what ifs out there. And I think, as we get into this entrepreneur conversation, I feel like the minute you decide to start a business, the what ifs multiply
Yes.
exponentially. I remember making the transition, and one of my big what ifs is who is actually going to cut that check, but also I'm not sure what situations I'll be finding myself in. Business travel, starts to pick up. Nobody could have predicted. I actually, as you know, Constance, I left my full-time corporate job in April of 2019. And then, of course, COVID-19 was right around the corner. So who knew that we were going into a big pandemic? So as you mentioned, there are so many what ifs out there that insurance just makes a lot of sense. And we're transferring that risk to another party to take care of us. And so
Yes.
I'm so glad that you broke that down very simply. And so speaking of entrepreneurs, let's get into this idea. What, in your opinion, what kind of insurance is essential for entrepreneurs, in your opinion?
Well, I like all insurances, of course. However, when we're thinking about those of us who have left our jobs where we may have had group coverage, as they call it, it might have been less expensive when we have a cost share with our employer, right? So they're paying a part of the premium, you're paying a part of the premium. And we have this misconception about what insurance actually costs sometimes when we've been in that kind of environment. And so when you're an entrepreneur, you have to build everything yourself. You have to build your benefits plan, you have to build your retirement plan, and cover the what if. So I would say, if at all possible, start with the health insurance, primarily because if there's no you, there's no business. If there's no you, there's no business. And so health is wealth in the aspect that when you take sick, if you're a solopreneur, or even if you're an entrepreneur who has a team, people are relying upon you for direction, for operations, for your guidance, and possibly even for those direct services. And oftentimes we'll think, well, I'm healthy. I'm okay. I don't really need it. I'll put it off for now, or I'll wait until I get more revenue coming in, and then I'll consider getting my benefits plan. But listen, we know the day nor the hour where we might take sick or where we may pass away in the worst case scenario. So I would definitely lead with health insurance. And then my next thing would be life insurance, and then your supplemental plans. And we can dig into those later in the conversation, but definitely try health, then life, and your supplemental.
Wow, yeah, I love what you said. There is no you if there's no business. I actually have a phrase up on my wall, Constance. You probably heard me say this before, but there's a kind of, I call them the Brian three reminders. And then the number two reminder is that you have to put your oxygen mask on yourself first before you can actually help anybody else. And so I know oftentimes when you go out to start a business, you're thinking about your total market. There's a problem that you want to solve. There are hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of people that you're trying to put, the oxygen mask on, but you can't do that if you yourself aren't protected. And so I love that. So start with health, then life, and then start thinking about supplemental and secondary coverages.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I'm sure that there are a lot of people that may have misconceptions as it comes to getting coverage. And actually, we'll probably let's drill in on the health insurance part since, health is wealth, as you mentioned. So specifically, what are some of the common misconceptions that you've seen current and aspiring entrepreneurs have as it relates to health insurance? I know I had my own, so we could talk about that, a little bit, but you help people actually, navigate this process here in Maryland. As you mentioned, you helped me go through the health Maryland Health Connection to find the right plan. But like, what are some of the common things that you hear people maybe think is true, but not necessarily true when it comes to health insurance?
Well, one of them is what I was just speaking about, people who have been traditionally healthy, like myself. I'm 43 now. And a few years ago, I was like, I'm healthy too. I don't really need, much, and there are some people who feel like if I get sick, I'll go to the emergency room, right? That's what they're there for. I'll go and get checked out. If it's anything serious, they'll help me and they'll take care of it. Not really realizing that a lot of people, especially now, are using the ER as a primary care doctor. And that's not what they're there for, right? They're there to make sure that no life-threatening things are occurring with you at that moment. But, our primary care doctors are our go-to for making sure that we're healthy and to try and prevent a lot of these critical things that do come up that send us to the emergency room. So one myth is that, oh, if I get sick, I'll just go to the emergency room or the urgent care, when oftentimes I want us to get in the mindset of being more proactive about our health and not reactive, right? Because some things we can't come back from, unfortunately. So stop using the ER as your primary care and get yourself a relationship with a primary care doctor, and stop thinking that you're always going to be healthy, because again, life happens to us, right? We do see some people who live well into their 100s, but oftentimes when they're interviewed, they're saying, I take care of myself, right? I settle myself, I pray, I meditate. They give us good advice that we don't often take heed to. And the other one is, people say, I can't afford it. The premium is going to be too much for my budget. I just started my business and I don't really have a lot of clients. So the affordability is an issue for a lot of people. But I will just share even my own story quickly. A few years ago in 2019, I was fully healthy at 40 years old. The only thing I was troubled with was depression and asthma, and both were well controlled for many years. So I turned 40 that year. I was super excited. Everything was going well in my business and in my personal life. I had a grandbaby on the way, and I got struck with depression really bad. It came out of nowhere. Okay. And then we know, since health is wealth, our mentality also has a lot to do with what shows up physically in our body. And so because I was mentally down, my body started to break down as well. And I will tell you, in a year and a half, from like the spring of 2019 to late 2020, of course, the pandemic had then arisen, I spent about $334,000 in medical claims that came through, thankfully, to Care First, who's one of the plans that you can find in the state of Maryland. But I was running back and forth to the emergency room. I was running back and forth to my primary care doctor, trying to figure out what was going on with me, running back and forth to see a bunch of specialists, had all kinds of CT scans and MRIs. And how many know that these images that they do are expensive? And so when I looked at those claims, I just picked a period of time. And like I said, it was $334,000 in medical claims that were submitted and paid on my behalf. And you know what I had to pay? A $1,500 deductible. And I was 100% covered for the rest of it. A $1,500 annual deductible, and all of the rest of that money was paid out. And I was like, wow, now I have the peace to know that if something else pops up, or if I get this symptom or this sensation, I'm going in to that doctor with no qualms about it, because I know that they're going to take care of my medical claims for me. And so I brought that up to say it can happen to any of us, young ones, older ones, healthy, unhealthy. You just definitely never know when it's going to pop up, and you want to be at peace about it.
Yeah, you brought up so many incredible points, Constance. I think the notion of not using your hospital or the emergency room as a primary care doctor is a very important concept. And I think there's always, for anything in life, I mean, you're in the financial space, so I'm sure you see this in other areas when it comes to like, savings or managing debt. I feel like anytime in life when we adopt a posture of waiting until the last minute or waiting until like things get critical, it's always going to be more expensive on the back end versus proactively managing a situation. I'm sure a lot of credit card companies and stuff like that, they capitalize on the fact that, oh, you're going to be in a tight space, or, oh, you're going to pay late. And so same thing with our health. I think I'm sure ambulance rides and, ER visits are a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And then to your point, sometimes you may not be able to get back from that. So I love the fact that you pointed that out. You also brought up the, depression. And so that opens up a larger kind of conversation around mental health services, which again,
Right.
I think sometimes we don't want to think about, we don't want to talk about, and it may not necessarily manifest itself as mental health, quote unquote, emergencies, but
Right.
that is something that you have access to once you get on many medical plans. And so having access to adequate mental health services is super important. I know I've been taking advantage of that for years, and particularly as an entrepreneur, it's been incredibly helpful. And so many things that you just unpacked that I think people may or may not be necessarily thinking about when it comes to health insurance. But now is the time, particularly as open enrollment is coming around, to really be thinking about your coverage with that. So,
Absolutely.
but that story, $344,000, like,
Yeah.
and only having to come out of pocket with 1,500,
Yep.
that is the reason insurance was invented. Like health
Hmm.
insurance anyway. So that is good stuff. I want to talk a little bit about the you mentioned the benefits of insurance, and perhaps there are some people now that probably already realize that. However, insurance could be a very complicated product. That's one of the reasons why I called you crying, trying to like figure it out. I'm like, it's complicated, but it's also consequential. Like it's very important, as we've been talking about. Now, in the state of Maryland, we have about 4% of the population. That's about 6 million people who currently don't have health insurance coverage. What advice would you give to people who are just intimidated or maybe frustrated about the process of just selecting an insurance plan, buying it, and getting up and running?
Well, I would say speak up. I know that your platform at BSN is Speak Up, Your Audience Awaits. Speak up, let people know that you firstly are in the market for insurance. And oftentimes we'll use our social media as a way to gain resources or community, collaborate with people. And so if you share that, hey, I'm looking for health insurance, life insurance, whatever, I know oftentimes I get tagged, when people are looking for those kind of resources, I get tagged by people who know that that's what I specialize in. And people will begin to share with you their agents, right? Their insurance agents that they have used, such as Brian shared. Also, even the Maryland Health Connection, they do have resources there where independent insurance agents, health and life, are hooked up with the Maryland Health Connection, where you could get in contact with someone through that website, as well as they do have something called the navigators. So the navigators are their in-person resources where you can go and sit down with someone and ask them about eligibility for health insurance and how, these plans work. Should you have a plan with a deductible or one without a deductible? And what does that impact have on your monthly premium? And you make that decision. So help is definitely out there. We just have to speak up and let people know what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm very quick to tag you, Constance, anytime somebody on my timeline is talking about, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And oftentimes, like information is power, but, having information alone isn't necessarily going to guarantee change. And
Mhm.
so that's why I'm so happy that the Maryland Health Connection has recognized that and has, kind of resources, people standing by to help you navigate that process. I know insurance is complex.
Yeah.
People's family situations are different. If some of you may be single, you may have kids, you may be taking care of aging parents, you may be trying to navigate, different situations. And so regardless, I think, finding something that meets your needs, both in terms of protection and financial affordability, all that is important. And so I would echo that. Don't let the process intimidate you, because at the end of the day, Constance, I still have the plan that you helped me pick out back in 2019.
That's
And
awesome.
Yeah, we look at it every year, but it's kind of like, hey, it still meets my needs. My family hasn't grown, whatever. So it's like, okay, this is good. So in a lot of cases, you got to do the work once, and then it'll continue to add value on and on. So good stuff. Good stuff. Now, the open enrollment period, we talked about that a little bit. Again, if you are in the state of Maryland, I know we have folks outside of Maryland probably watching this, so just check the rules for your state. But if you're in the state of Maryland, the open enrollment period is coming up. That is going to be running from November 1st to January 15th of next year. And so, Constance, in your opinion, why is this period so important for people who have insurance and for people perhaps who don't have insurance?
Good question. And I love that you gave the dates for open enrollment. This is a time, just like right now in September, this is Life Insurance Awareness Month. So these awareness months or open enrollment periods are triggers, right? They allow us to focus in on whatever that awareness or that matter is. And so for open enrollment, it gives you a long amount of time. What is that? 30, 60, 75 days to have the right conversations, to interview your professionals, to consider the plans that you may have been quoted. That's a good bit of time to be able to make a qualified decision, right? The other thing that I wanted to share, since we're talking about the timeframes, is that if you are self-employed and you have at least one employee, not including yourself, your spouse, or your children or family members, but you do have a full-time employee working with you, you are able to shop for insurance through the health exchange at any time, not just during open enrollment. So again, if you are a small business owner with at least one full-time employee that is not you, your spouse, or your family members, you could get what they call SHOP benefits at SHOP. Which stands for Small Business Health Option Program. So the SHOP program is available to you all year long if you do qualify with that one full-time employee. And they have some other metrics that you have to qualify for. But that's one, reason that we should be having these conversations, is that we'll know when we can enroll in these programs. The other thing is, if you feel like you might not be able to afford the health insurance premium based on your income and things of that nature, you may be able to qualify for like a Maryland Medicaid program. So Medicaid program, again, you're allowed to apply for that at any time, not just during open enrollment. So if you find that you're on the lower income side of things at this present time and you still need health insurance, you can get your Maryland Medicaid program through the Maryland Health Connection, and you can also go to your local Department of Social Services to apply. So there are many ways that you can get insured. You just have to know where to find those resources. And people like myself, Brian, and other leaders in the community, especially in small business space, will be able to connect you to people who can help you to keep up with these timelines and to get the benefits that make sense for your family. And as far as the affordability, there's also, and I talked about this with you, Brian, when we had, I think it was an estate planning type of summit. And we were talking about affordability and how to leverage this opportunity to get covered and have great conversations with financial experts. There is a tax credit called the APTC, Advanced Premium Tax Credit. So again, based on your income, and you can get that through the health exchange, you fill in a little bit of information and they'll tell you if you qualify for the tax credit. Now that tax credit is good because if you qualify, you'll be able to get a discount or a credit towards your monthly premium, and it goes directly to the insurance carrier on your behalf. So if your premium was $500 a month and you qualified for that APTC, you might be able to bring that $500 monthly premium down to something very reasonable based on your income. And then they'll send you a form or a statement at the end of the year, which kind of confirms how much premium credit they paid on your behalf. And you would file that with your tax return, and you would reconcile the credit with your actual income. So you can do it that way. Or the other way is you could just simply pay your premium yourself. And then when you file your tax return, you'll be able to utilize that tax credit in full for whatever it was you would have qualified for throughout the year. So again, don't let affordability be the reason that you're not having these conversations and that you're not pursuing coverage. Just make sure that you speak with people who are knowledgeable and make sure that you get what you need.
Constance, I feel like I learn something from you every time, whether it's a short conversation, long conversation, webinar, conference. Like I always walk away, learning something. And so, absolutely, there are so many programs and resources, and I think sometimes we just don't realize like how much we have at our fingertips, and that's the reason why I'm so excited that we could have conversations like this. And so, uh, if you are getting something out of this, if you've had a couple light bulbs go off, if you feel like, man, I'm really going to take advantage of some of the things we were talking about, just go ahead and drop a yes in the comments, because we would love to see the folks that are taking advantage of this. And perhaps you may know someone. Again, I know we have people from all across the country watching, but you may know people in Maryland, or you yourself maybe in the state, or you may be outside the state, you're just thinking about this holistically. Consider share this information, because listening to you just now, Constance, makes me realize like, wow, truly, first of all, I cannot believe that it's already fall. The year goes by so fast, and open enrollment will have come and then gone before you know it. And so, what I want to encourage folks to do, not only to share this, but I don't believe anything happens until you put it on your calendar. And so the things that Constance is talking about, even if you just need to put a calendar reminder for a week from now to say, you know what, this was great information. Let me find that link. Let me put it on my calendar. Let me go to Maryland healthconnection.gov. Just put it in your calendar somewhere where you could get back to it, so that it won't be January 30th of next year and you're wondering to yourself, man, I missed my opportunity, I missed my window, and now you have to wait. If you're getting something from this, drop yes into the comments. Make sure you share it, and also make sure that you set some time up for yourself to come back to this, where you're in a place where you could sit down, start going through whether you need to bring your spouse in, family, etc. Like, make sure you prioritize this. So, Constance, we're coming to the end of our conversation again. We've learned so much already. Are there any final thoughts, something that we didn't have a chance to cover or think about, or any final message that you would want people to consider, as we go into this final quarter of the year?
Sure. So the last thing that I will say is for our transitioning people who might be going from employer to self-employment or having life changes. So there are definitely other times where you could enroll in your benefits for the Maryland Health Exchange, and that would be what they call the SEP, or a special enrollment period. So if you're someone who has lost your job, your income has changed, or you are married now and you weren't previously married, or you have a new child, even adopted or foster children, those are considered special enrollment periods, and they give you up to 60 days from the change, or whatever the date of the change is in your life. So if you got married, it's the married date. If you've adopted a child, it's the date that child came into your legal possession. So just think about the special enrollment periods as well. When things change in your life, does that qualify you to now change your insurance? So that's my last tip, and pass it back over to you, Brian.
All right, Constance, thank you so much. And I'll leave Constance links as well, so that way you could connect with her if you're trying to get more information. But this has been such a rich conversation. Health is indeed wealth. And I'm so excited that we could take a few minutes just to kind of dive into these topics, and make sure that you can find the right insurance as an entrepreneur. And really, everybody right now, everybody needs insurance. So let's put that on the table. But we really wanted to drill into this conversation around entrepreneurs, because we know we have so many folks that are either in that space or leaning into that direction. So as we go forward, I'm going to say this. This is not the season to roll the dice on your future. Now is the time to protect yourself, to protect your family. And so again, if you live in the state of Maryland, open enrollment is coming. Depending on when you listen to this, open enrollment may already be here. November 1st to the 15th is the period. And the Maryland Health Connection is going to be your one-stop shop to get coverage. It's going to cover your doctor visits, prescription, medical health services, and so much more. And so as we learned today from Constance, Health insurance can, in fact, it can seem complicated. You may be intimidated by the process. You may think it's expensive, but there is help and there's resources out there. 9 out of 10 people in Maryland who enroll with the Maryland Health Connection do qualify for some sort of financial help to pay for their plan. Constance alluded to that. There's free help as well. So don't delay. Head on over to marylandhealthconnection.gov. That is the official marketplace for Maryland to shop, compare, and enroll for health insurance. So on behalf of Black Speakers Network and Maryland Health Connection, thank you so much for joining us. Another special thank you to you, Constance, for always sharing, always being a resource, and of course, helping to ensure that folks have the protection they need. As we say at BSN, keep speaking up because your audience awaits. And remember to put that oxygen mask on yourself so you can go out and help other people. Take care.